and welcome to this episode of Resilience Reborn. I'm Angie.
And I'm Trey.
We are very, very thrilled today to have Ilene Smith on this episode to talk, oh my gosh, about so many things surrounding grief and trauma and just the ways that you have, put that into practice, and with your personal stories as well. So if you would, Ilene, just start out and give us a little background about you and what brought you to where you are right now and kind of the story behind that.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me here. I'm so honored that I get to be a guest today.
Of course.
Oh, we're excited.
Yeah. So how I got to where I am today is actually never as you think it's going to be. And so I certainly didn't expect that on June 18th, 2016, that I'd be widowed suddenly at the age of 48. And this is probably a very crazy thing to say, but my husband's death had brought me to a spiritual awakening. So I very quickly understood from the moment he died that he left this planet exactly where it was supposed to be, and he left me exactly where I was supposed to be on my journey. And it was painful. And I always share it this way because you can't describe that level of pain to somebody who hasn't been through it. But I would say this. Day one, I could barely open my eyes. And that heavy doom, like pit in my stomach, like punched in the stomach kind of feeling would happen before I even opened my eyes. And then eventually I got all the way to the coffee maker before that feeling set in, right? And then eventually it was, an hour, and it took time for that and the intensity of the pain to go away. And I'd get up, and every day I would always say to myself, it's gonna get better. So what brought me to where I am today was, I've been widowed now 8 years. And I would say that my biggest fear when my husband died was not that I wasn't going to find someone, because I still, to this day, I still have hope that that person is going to show up for me if he hasn't already.
Sure.
And my biggest fear is that I wasn't going to have an interesting life. Because we had a very beautiful, interesting life. And I'm so proud of what I created for myself over the last 8 years. And it's been, I feel today I can say this, I feel empowered by what I've gone through. Not that I want to ever experience that intense.
Again.
No, I don't need to go through that again.
Yes.
A widow once said to me, she says, yes, you're now a part of a club that you wished you didn't belong to.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
We are a tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
That we don't wish on anyone. Yeah.
No, but I think, what I would say is that I realized very quickly, and in that spiritual awakening, is that it was really about how I chose to move through the experience and what I was going to do with all of that grief. Because that grief can become so dark. And so, you can go deep into the hole, or you can find a way out. And I chose to find a way out.
So this was actually a decision that you made that you were going to move through this with that kind of a outlook on it.
It was a conscious it was a conscious decision, because I realized there was so much information from the universe being given to me. And one of the big things for me, I was so independent from my upbringing, my childhood trauma. I never really relied on anyone. My husband's probably the first person I allowed into really that I relied on. And I realized through the process of grief that the only way I was going to heal was through connection and allowing myself to receive and being vulnerable. And when I realized that, is when my healing journey began. But I surrendered. I knew that I had to surrender to the pain. of it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I think that that also comes with the maturity of I guess in your life when this happened, you know, because I know that with Ange and being the younger, you just don't have those tools.
I'm sitting here in all of that because I was 25, right? So the knowledge that you had to be able to make that decision, because there's no way that I ever did that. You know,
How would you know? How would
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's different. 48 is still really young,
Yeah.
but I think it's
Absolutely,
really
yeah.
different than being widowed in your 20s and 30s. And I had done, like, I was a trauma therapist. I'm now doing other things, which I'll share a little bit later. But I had done so much personal work that when this happened to me, I had a lot more tools than I actually realized I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that this was going to be a choice about how I move through this and what I created next for myself.
Right.
But it was scary, and it was lonely, and it was sad, and it was painful, and it was dark at times. But, and maybe this sounds cliche, and we've heard people say this before, but where there's darkness, there's light.
There's light.
But you have to find the light.
Right.
And that part of it does become a choice.
That's such a powerful message.
Right. So
Thank
what
you.
were some of the things that you did to move forward? Like,
You know what? I owned the pain, and and rather than pushing it away, I invited it in, because what I know is that the more you resist, the worse it becomes. And so if you can invite it in and allow yourself to be uncomfortable and be with it. It doesn't mean you sit in it and your whole life becomes, oh my God, look what happened to me. But there's, the intensity of the pain doesn't last. You can't be in that much pain like consistently. It
Right.
doesn't work like that. It comes in waves. It comes in waves, right? So I knew when that wave would wash over me, it was my responsibility to myself and to my soul to be able to be with it and say, this is just part of the journey through. Because the only way past something is through it.
Yeah. What you resist persists.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really true. So, back to your question, where am I or today, 8 years later, is I've designed a life that is quite beautiful and quite connected and quite joyful. But it didn't just happen like that. You have to do the things along the way to make that happen. So, I mean, I'm one of the things that I'm really adamant about is my connections and my relationships with people. And, it's really easy to stay home and not do things and not fly across the country if you have the means, if somebody's having an anniversary party or, you're invited to things, it's much easier to isolate. And so I realized, and there were plenty of times where I just wanted to put the covers over my head and say, fuck it.
Yep.
And I'm like, there was never a time that I went against that inner force of like, you just want to check out from it, where I would show up for a dinner party or show up for whatever, where friends were, that I didn't feel better. I always felt better when I was in connection. And I would say that was the first 4 or 5 years. And then there was a point in time where I had to really be able to learn how to be quiet with myself as well.
oh,
Yeah, because that was being out there and being connected and being busy and all that was great. And it helped me so much to feel like I wasn't alone in all this.
Right.
But then there's also a moment in time that, okay, there's a divide between, am I doing it just to be busy and distract myself from me versus that's really great and it's community and you have a collective, versus where's the balance between me making sure that I'm okay just with me being by myself.
right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it has to be a balance.
Now, do you think that your background, 'cause you are a therapist, do you think that background helped with those
with all of it, like
yeah, with the way that
all
you
of it.
handled it. I mean, is that the way you would tell someone to handle it if you were on the other side?
I did what I would definitely how I would guide someone,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't. I think that along the way, like as a trained therapist, I also was, I was a patient of all different kinds of therapeutic modalities, including somatic experiencing, which is what I had specialized in. I no longer practice, which I'll tell you about. Now I'm doing other things, but you never know what you're being prepared for. And so much of my work as a patient was learning how to find my safety within rather than, being anxiously attached. Because I had a lot of anxious attachment that was that I was working through in my marriage. And so you have to, when you're working through an anxious attachment, because that goes back into all the childhood stuff.
Right.
You're having the only way to really work through the anxious attachment is learning how to attach to yourself differently. And so much of my work in my marriage, the inner work that I had to do was learning how to find my own safety, no matter where my husband was emotionally. Like if he was stressed, if he was in a bad mood, that didn't matter. I had to take ownership of myself and not depend on him for my inner safety.
Right.
So when he died, excuse me, the whole journey through was about, I'm still safe in here.
Yep.
My safety is still, even though he's not here. So that was so much of my personal transformational work was that work. And then he dies.
So you were married at 40, is that correct?
Yes.
And you had 8 years. Now, do you feel, because I'm assuming there's reasons that you waited. I waited longer to get married myself. It was a conscious decision. Do you feel like you were almost robbed, like, of that experience? Like,
It's a good, I never felt like I was robbed. I felt like I was given what I was supposed to be given here.
okay.
So I never looked at it like, why me?
Like a victim kind of
No,
mentality.
I always understood that, and maybe that was part of the spiritual awakening that I had, was that this is exactly how it's supposed to be, even though this isn't what I had planned in my life. So I surrendered very quickly to, okay, like we have to do this. So I don't know where that resilience came from, where that whole thing, but I do know that there was an awakening for me. And there was this sort of this really interesting thing that happened. It was almost as though I realized that, when a tree dies, it spreads its seeds.
Right.
And so his death almost felt like he spread his seeds for me to grow in ways that I never would have grown on my own. I never would be the person I am today if I had not gone through that.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's such a great way to look at it, though.
Oh,
you know?
I'm in awe.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
that's just, and I sit here and I think about the way that I felt, and it was complete opposite of that. And so I'm just taking it all in that, you're so smart and that you had those tools to do that. I just think that it's very powerful.
Thank you.
Very, very powerful.
I wouldn't have had those tools at 25.
Oh.
I would definitely not have had those tools at 25.
Yeah.
But I knew, I guess somewhere inside of me, I knew that if I want it to be okay, it's going to be up to me to make it okay.
Right.
Like nobody else now, this
yes.
next journey or this next chapter is now about me, not about a partnership. It's about what I create in the life that I want to design.
Right. Yeah. And so what is that?
Wow, it's a good question. So I, as we talked about, I shared a little bit with you. So I was a trauma therapist for many years. I authored a book called Moving Beyond Trauma, Amazon bestseller. You can get it on Amazon.
Yeah. No, this was after your husband's death.
This was in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. And so after he died, I took a I would say this. I was really passionate about the work I was doing, but I really immersed myself. And like we were talking about earlier today about healing, so much of my own healing happened in helping other people.
Yeah.
And I decided in 2000, I guess it was like 2018, I'm like, I want to write a book to help people understand the importance of bringing the body into the healing process, and why we can't heal just through our minds. It has to be body-mind connection. So that's why I wrote the book, and it really kind of unpacks it for the layperson or somebody who's been in therapy and is spinning their wheels and they can't understand why they're not getting to where they want to go.
Right.
Because like trauma is not necessarily about an event. It's about the energy that gets locked in your body around real or perceived threat.
Oh.
So yeah, so the mind will try to hijack the body and override
For protection, probably.
for protection, right?
Yeah.
That's what's the number one job of our brains,
Yeah.
to survive.
To survive.
But that energy, all that stored energy is still in the body. Yeah. So, anyway, so I wrote the book 2020, and I, had a successful practice. But somewhere along the way, probably around 2020, I started playing around in the world of psychedelic medicine and started taking my own journey there. I knew I had like the whole other level of healing that needed to be done. And I knew that I wasn't getting to it. And I said, I don't know what's going to do it, but I was introduced to psychedelic medicine, and I took a deep dive in there. And there's always work to do, and when I started on that journey, I still had so much fear about really showing up for myself. I say three things, and this is part of the new work that I've created called the Truth Method: fear, shame, and self-betrayal. And when we can get access to those pieces of ourselves that we turn away from, because we all turn away from the things we fear, right? The ways we shame ourselves and how we betray ourselves. And so I started unraveling all of that within myself. And that's led me now to the process of what I'm going to do now, which is I'm launching retreats for successful entrepreneurs, and I'm through this work called the Truth Method. And I'm really ready now to be speaking more and be on stage and facilitate workshops from all this material, because this is the material that I've used to help clients through the years, and then I kind of manualized the process and took myself through it and used the psychedelic medicine as a part of the tool for that. And really was able to reveal to myself a whole bunch of things that I didn't want to reveal.
Oh.
And that's what this is. It's a reveal.
Okay.
That's what the method is. It's about a reveal.
I read a book just recently, and they were talking about how the one thing that shame hates is getting words wrapped around it.
I love that.
Yeah.
One thing that shame hates is getting words.
You can't survive with words around it. You start talking about the shame, it just doesn't survive.
Yeah, it's like the thing that they say in AA, right? Our secrets are our sickness.
Yes, your sick is your secret.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, but I like that with the words. Yeah, it's true, because everything, where do we go wrong in our lives? Like when we get ourselves, and I say go wrong, get ourselves into trouble. It's always when it's those three things. It's when we betray ourselves, right? Things go sideways.
Yep.
Right. Somewhere, even if it doesn't happen in the short term, in the long run, that always, but we betray ourselves, which then leads to shame, which leads to more secrets, which leads to more hiding from ourselves.
Absolutely. I lived it, with my alcoholism and hiding it from my family. I lived that every day. And the more you do, the guiltier you feel, the deeper you get, the more you think you can't get out of it. So yeah, I absolutely understand.
Just keep hiding from yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
wow.
powerful.
So the truth method, that's something you came up with.
Yeah, this is a new process.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to get a book out next year, and
Now, is it like patented, and like how do you do something like that? Is
well, I haven't patented yet. So, I don't know if you can. I have to find out. But it's I have there's a whole program around it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've created a whole program.
And
around
that's
it.
what you'll do these
Yeah,
retreats
and so
around. Okay,
that's
so
the
what does that look
retreats and the
like?
workshops. So it's all of like some like last week I did a workshop, a 6-hour workshop for a group on just self-betrayal, and we took a deep dive into self-betrayal, and they got to really uncover things that they probably have never said out loud, and they shared with the group members.
is that pretty emotional?
Oh yeah, we had tears everywhere.
And this is men you primarily work with, so you had
and this group was co-ed, but
Okay.
but for the retreats, I'm gonna do successful entrepreneurs. I've worked with that population for a very long time.
okay.
So I feel like it's my calling, and I also feel like a lot of that that population is underserved to have really safe, nurturing space. So I feel like those are my people, and I want to really serve them.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And I was married to a successful entrepreneur, so I know the personality pretty
right,
well.
and the things that come with that,
Yeah,
right?
I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you had mentioned that you had to, no matter what he was going through at the time, you still had to like
Find my safety.
Yes.
Yeah, be in my safety. Yeah.
And so you're transferring that to the work that you're doing now, which is amazing.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about this. I know that this work is it's universal because it's we all wind up at some point in our lives. Those elements come in.
No matter who
No
you
matter
are
who
or
you
what
are.
you've been through, or yes, it is something that is common for everyone, right?
It's because it's part of what we call the shadow, the parts of ourselves we wish did not exist.
Okay.
Right? So, but when we can go in there and be with those parts and nurture those parts and understand how we became that, that's how that we became, or that how that part became something of us, right? Because where it comes from is our childhood. See, if you think about it, we're born into this world with no discernment between ourselves and our environment. But the moment our environment, whether it's parents, peers, siblings, society, cues us that there's something wrong with us, or we're not okay because we do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
In order for us to feel safe, we'll abandon that part of ourselves to be in relationship with the primary caregivers or siblings or your peers, whoever it is. So like, for example, if a kid is bullied, okay, and he wants to be, at some point he wants to be accepted, at some point he's going to go and do a bunch of things that he doesn't want to do to be liked by the other kids.
Right.
Or if you have a parent who, just take this example, a narcissistic parent, okay, which generally doesn't allow space for a child to have any emotions.
Right.
What does that child do? Number one thing that child needs is safety. So in order to feel safe, what that child will do is they will give up their emotional needs to be in relationship with that parent. And then what happens is that becomes conditioning, or what I like to say is it becomes imprinted. And then they move into adult relationships and they never share, or they don't feel safe enough to share their feelings, or they wind up in a relationship with somebody who doesn't allow them, right? We tend to repeat what's familiar,
yes.
right?
Absolutely.
We tend to repeat what's familiar. So all of that happens. So if you think about that, now we're in our adult lives, and so the process is about revealing all the things to yourself that you don't want to reveal, because once we reveal them, we can work with them. And they lose their charge. They really do lose their charge.
Sure.
Like what you're saying. I love that shame.
Yeah.
What is it? Say it again. That shame with words around it.
Wrapped in words.
Yeah.
Can't
that
survive.
can't survive. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess like it's very similar to like what you went through, like what she's kind of talking about, that like
Yeah.
you tapped into those things from your childhood and things like that, right?
Yeah.
You know, with your it makes sense.
Yeah, you got to go in there. I mean, there's like, as I said earlier, there's no way past other than through.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you know, so like when I lost my mom, because that was kind of the point I started, you know, going down the drinking path, and um, but I just kind of was acted like I was fine, and I was told that by, you know, my father.
That you were fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I asked him. I said, "Why did we never see somebody?" You know, and obviously it wasn't a big thing back then, but it was also, he said that you acted like everything was fine.
Yeah. So I'd be curious to know if, as a child, was there a lot of space for you to have your emotions?
I'm sure there was. I don't know that it wasn't something that was like taken away, like you had mentioned. It wasn't something I wasn't allowed to do, but it was something I felt like maybe I could handle, or you know,
Or do you want to be a good boy, like
whatever,
kind of thing?
whatever it was. I don't know, but I know that you know, it caught up with me later in life, obviously, and luckily I survived it, you know, with the support of my family. But it was also, you know, my message I always say to parents who might have lost their significant other with a young child in adolescence, or even, you know, younger than that, that they're not okay.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
not.
it's the piece too, right? Like, if there wasn't a lot of expression of emotion in your house, where would you learn to express your emotion?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So it sounds like that might have been more of what happened there.
Yes.
It could
Right.
be. Yeah.
Because, you know, kids do what they see, not what they're told.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
True.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's huge.
No, I want my alcoholic brain is going back to the psychedelics a little bit.
Okay.
You want to know more?
I want to know more
More, yeah,
about
okay.
how that plays into it, and you know, is this all in the United States? Is that something that's allowed? Like I want
So
to know
it's
more about
outside
it.
the United States.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right, here's the thing with psychedelic medicine, and I see this over and over. Psychedelic medicine is only as good as the preparation before the medicine and the integration afterwards. Because a lot of people, what they do is they go have some psychedelic experience and journey, and like they think it's like all cured. But it's never, it's the medicine really needs to be used to help bring about what's already inside of you.
Right.
But you can't, you can't make meaning of it without the prep and the integration. So it's really important to have the work on either side, because I see so many people just they, this incredible experience, and then they're chasing the next journey.
Right.
And
And,
that's
it's not about I'm assuming it's not about going out and getting that high feeling. It's more about getting deep within yourself, right?
it's about going really deep into the subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the medicines, what they do is they help to rewire the neural pathways of the brain.
Yes, and I've heard that. I've heard that a lot. It was something I can't remember what it was called.
I don't.
It was the frog.
Oh, combo. But the combo.
The frog poison and all that. Yeah,
Yeah. The frog poison they do is they burn holes on your skin, and they put the medicine on top, and then like 20 minutes later you're puking.
I've heard that. It doesn't sound fun.
That was the first one I did.
Okay.
It was bad.
It was bad.
I don't like. I mean, I'm not saying it's not helpful.
Sure.
But it wasn't my medicine.
Yeah.
Just to say, because you resonate with different things.
Okay.
It wasn't something that resonated with me, but it's very effective.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it's so innovative that you're bringing that into the world of therapy, because I think there was just such a bad stigma put on a lot of that stuff, especially if I understand, like in the 70s when they were doing like the no drug stuff. I think it was in it. I don't know.
It was Nixon and Reagan.
Nixon and Reagan.
And the reason why, so all of these psychedelics are now coming back into favor because they're getting funding, government funding, and they're seeing how effective they are. But I think it was Nixon, when the war, what happened was all these young men were doing psychedelic medicine, and they didn't want to go to war. They were finding like love and peace.
Sure.
And so they cut off all of the research, the government research, to do all the psychedelic research, and essentially created a whole campaign to say no to drugs. And it was just a way for the government to control these young men to go to forcing them to go to war. It was during the draft.
Sure. Sure.
And then Reagan and Nancy Reagan jumped on that bandwagon.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. I don't know if you know this, but I'm familiar with what's going on with MDMA.
Yeah.
So MDMA just they've been trying to get it legalized for therapeutic purposes, and it just got rejected. But Rick Doblin, who runs MAPS, is he's not going to give up. So.
Yeah, I've heard such good things about and what I think people need to understand too is that what you find out on the streets, so that's not MDMA anymore. That's but I've read an article about the guy who actually came up with it. Was the doctor that used to try all this stuff.
Yeah.
Did you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but there was I don't know if you saw the docu-series. Oh my God,
Is the one on Netflix?
Yeah, but I can't remember. Forgetting the guy's name who, Michael. Oh my God, I'm totally blanking. But we can look after you guys put it in the notes. But it's a great docu-series on all the different psychedelic medicines and how LSD was discovered in like a lab somewhere in Europe. I mean, it's actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
They talk about ayahuasca.
That was the one I was talking about. Ayahuasca.
So, yeah. So it's pretty fascinating.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, the plant medicines have been used for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Sure.
The tribes and which is they're powerful tools for healing.
Yep.
Wow.
In the right hands, absolutely.
Yeah.
So like I said, I commend you for doing that. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're going out on a limb, and but it sounds like that your truth method and everything. I mean, obviously, it did wonders, for you, and you've tested it yourself. I mean, that's
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I know I'm excited to bring this work out and share it.
Yeah.
Because I know how powerful these things are when you get through them. Because you feel the sense of there's expansion. Like you get to be in expansionary states and see that there's more beyond what you think you can do.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, what makes them powerful. Gives you courage.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It breaks down those barriers.
Yeah. Oh, wow. This is so awesome. You're just a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
And I just think that your perspective is going to be so much for the audience, and just different avenues I think that you've taken yourself to heal.
Thank you.
I think are just they're powerful. I know for me that it's just sitting here, I could listen to you all day.
Thank you. Well, I think the thing is, it's like if you don't try, you never know, right? Like, and so what would you rather? Do I want to have regrets that I didn't try something, or I didn't try to make myself better, or transform, or bring more consciousness to myself? Like, I see at this point in my life, like that doesn't even feel like a choice, because once you start uncovering and discovering and find yourself, everything else, and find your, like, I guess I would just say find your truth and find who you are and the authenticity. Everything else comes easier after that.
It just falls into place, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's like, and I said this to this group last week. I'm like, once you love yourself, everything else is secondary. Yeah.
So
I
true.
really believe that, right?
Yeah. So true.
But we make it more complicated. But if you and think about it, right? If you don't put your oxygen mask on first, I think it's like, it's simple. It's really, But I think we get scared, we
Mm-hmm.
get scared and we worry about what other people are going to think and
Mm-hmm.
how's it going to look. And I mean, the million stories that we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
No, I still like that's always been my biggest block. Is what are other people going to think, and that's why I didn't share my story until just recently publicly because I was always worried what the stigma on alcoholism and addiction and things like that it was what are people going to think, and what I didn't realize is what people think is how I'm going to be able to help
Right.
people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
And what about this part? Like, how many people embraced you for sharing and having the courage to share your story?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
and the opportunity that it's actually given me to help others that have come to me. I've been to conferences where they, I'll say something on stage and they'll come up to me afterwards and say, I haven't even told my husband, but I've got this problem, and I'm trying to stop now, and just
It's huge.
It's
right?
huge,
It's
yes.
huge. And like, I mean, even think about this, you go to AA, right? And at a certain point, you don't really need the meetings,
right,
but the community is obviously a beautiful thing, but the piece of you go because you never really know who you're going to be helping when you walk
Absolutely.
into those rooms.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, and you had said something that because you were healing yourself by helping others, and Angie, you said the same thing, and I think people they discount that too much because it truly is one of the best healers out there is getting outside of yourself to help someone else.
Huge.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I was able to get sober.
Right.
One of the major tools that I used.
Wow.
So I think that for anybody, it's such a powerful tool.
Well, and I think that's why, like, sitting here listening to you, I'm just so that you were able to do that. Like, I'm, because I wasn't, and I'm further along, my journey, and I just now feel like that's where I'm at. So I love hearing that, and that you're able to speak to maybe those other women that are in the exact same place that I was 19 years ago, and they can start so much sooner. And that you are sharing that. It's just so,
Thank you.
yes, it makes me so happy because I wish that I had this when I was 25.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I never at 25, I would have been I would have been a very hot mess.
Yes, yes, there were,
I wouldn't have been equipped.
I mean, even for you just to speak about, I mean, because there's so much I don't remember. I don't remember so much of it, right?
Yeah.
And for you to say that you just dove in, and I don't know, it's just so I'm in awe. Yeah.
But I will tell you this, and you and I had a similar experience. We were widowed very suddenly,
Yes.
right? So I always have this vision of, it was like somebody, like the universe, just tapped my husband on the shoulder and just yanked him out, so we didn't get a chance for the unwinding or closure or anything like this. So if you go back to what trauma is, too much, too soon, too fast, without any way to defend or protect yourself.
Oh.
And that will basically, your mind and body will essentially protect you. And that's why you don't remember. It's why a lot of children that have had a lot of childhood trauma, they'll tell you they don't remember.
They don't remember.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's the brain protecting you from the experience.
Right. And I've heard that, through all the things, and then I would sit with other widows, ones that, their husbands, they died of cancer and they were their caretakers, and they can't imagine the suddenness of how I experienced it versus, I can't imagine the long.
Oh my God. That's, I think that, like, in some ways, because I've asked myself that question too, like,
yes,
was it better this way? And to be honest, for me, yes, because to have to take care of somebody in a slow death and watching them suffer and knowing they're going to die. Like my dad had cancer and he died 4 years ago, and he didn't suffer till the end, but in the end was kind of bad. But if I couldn't imagine like,
Me either.
you know, that would be so hard.
I know. I sat with those other women and I just cried thinking, I don't know how you did that. And then they're like, well, you didn't say goodbye. You know, it's just, you know.
Right. It's which one, neither one is good, but it's the reality of life.
Right.
And as women, you know, we are, you know, statistics show that we outlive men as it is. So chances are, right, that
It's
that
gonna
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a similar experience. My dad recently passed from cancer, and it was a long battle. He battled it, but and he didn't suffer. So, but it was still, because, you know, so now I've had one of each of my parents. One was sudden through a car accident, and then my father through cancer. So, and there's nothing better or worse about any of them. They're just both terrible. You know?
Yeah. I know. It's. I mean, depends what you believe in. I've got my own feelings about it, but death is hard for the ones that are left behind.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's horrible for us.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
And the more you love, it's just, it's bound to, right, happen. And,
but you know, it's up to us to keep that relationship alive and create a different connection and a different kind of, like, I never think of my husband, I don't, like, we're still connected. It's just a different kind of connection.
Yeah.
Same with my dad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, how can we support you and, you know, like our audience? Like, we're just so grateful that you're here and the wealth of knowledge that you've brought to this space. So, you know, how can we help you? And
just, you can share my Instagram. It's the Ilene Smith. Ilene is ILENE. Or IleneSmith.com.
Okay.
So if anyone's interested in learning more about me or the workshops,
your retreats,
all of that.
And also your book.
And my book, it's on Amazon.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll link everything.
Awesome.
For everybody
Yes,
below,
in our
so
episode.
absolutely.
You guys are awesome. Thank
Oh
you.
no, we are so grateful that we have met you, and I just know that this is a wealth of knowledge for everybody that's listening, and we just thank you so much for being here with us in this space.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, just wonderful, very wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Resilience Reborn, and until next time.
Thanks.